In the martial world, the Justice Clan and the Cult Clan antagonize over each other's existence. The Cult gained prominence in the Year of the Salt Fish, instigating fear throughout the world about their growing sway with the people. When the Justice Clan could no longer bear the clan's dominance, they decided to launch an attack at the cult headquarters. It was a sink-and-swim battle. However, after countless attacks, the Justice Clan managed to infiltrate the headquarters. Once in front of Yubation, the head of the Justice Clan angrily announces that today his cult will end with him. In response, Yubation snickers and questions him why the entire Justice Clan is so hell-bent on demolishing the cult when they haven't done anything unforgivable. The angry leader tells him that when the 9 Justice Clans sent him a proposal to join the Martial League, he mercilessly slayed the messenger. Bored by the conversation, Yubation asks him if he's talking about the same messenger who dared to harass his female disciple. Upon hearing this, the leader dubbed Yubation's accusation as hearsay. He then asks Yubation to commit harakiri or else they will have to use violence against him. After breaking into a maniacal laughter, Yubation boasts to the Justice Clan that he is invincible because he never lost a fight. Suddenly, the Darklord unleashes his power and transforms into a salt fish. 13 years later, at the ruins of the cult headquarters, Yubation as a salt fish trembles in fear when he sees a silhouette approaching towards him. Yurenji happily greets his father. Yubation instantly gives his son an unexpected fish hug. He tells Yurenji that he was worried about him getting exposed as the Darklord's son. As Yurenji begins cooking, Yubation states that he has found a way for him to survive. If he attains the Certificate of the Good, then the cult can also be classified as a Justice Clan. In order to get the certificate, Yurenji must enroll himself in the Justice League Academy. Excited to see the world, Yurenji immediately accepts his father's orders. Yubation warns his son to not expose his identity. He summons an escort, Li Dongfeng, to guard Yurenji at all times. Established for more than 100 years, Justice League Academy is located at the foot of Mount Glory. Before the elimination of cults, the grounds of the academy were utilized by the Justice Clan to practice and enhance their martial communication so they can defeat and slay the evil clans. Once cult was out of the picture, the place regained the status of an academy for the Martial League to foster the swordsmen of the Justice Clans. Li Dongfeng tells Yurenji that only those qualified as super talented are able to attain the Certificate of the Good. With determined eyes, Yurenji asserts that he will surely work hard to get the Certificate of the Good. Upon hearing his declaration, the mighty Li Dongfeng sentimentally tells Yurenji to work hard so he can reform the cult. The heavy responsibility now falls on his shoulders. After a strenuous exercise of carrying Li Dongfeng on his tiny shoulders, Yurenji finally reaches the threshold of the reputable Justice League Academy. Both he and Li Dongfeng express their amazement upon setting eyes on the building and the long line of students. The guards at the academy loudly announce that disciples of the cult are strictly forbidden on the campus. They warn the students that if they're found as the followers of the cult, they'll be executed on sight. All of a sudden, the chief guard of Justice League Academy, Kang, throws a cult practitioner out. He then orders the guards to take the man to the cult slaughterhouse. Once again, the guards warn the students to not take risks. Terrified by Kang's determination to suss out cult disciples, Yurenji asks Li Dongfeng if they will be okay. Li Dongfeng assures that they don't possess any cult markings on their bodies. Just as the words leave his mouth, the guards announce that the son of Cult Darklord has shown up in the martial world. They raise a dummy of Yurenji, stating that if anyone finds him, he must be executed immediately. Afraid of getting discovered, Li Dongfeng transforms Yurenji into a beautiful girl. His beauty melts the heart of Chang, who willingly allows Yurenji to pass through the entrance gate. Once they're in, Yi Mingxu, daughter of the Martial League leader, comes rushing towards them with a spear. She yells at them to surrender. As Yurenji begins to fret for his life, Yi Mingxu turns her spear towards Li Dongfeng. She angrily asks him why he's harassing an innocent girl like that. To save his young master, Li Dongfeng gives up his pretense and asks Yi Mingxu how she came to know that he was a member of the cult. Yi Mingxu examines his appearance and says that he looks like a rough man in a woman's clothing. She expresses how no man with dignity will walk in public wearing a woman's clothing. Li Dongfeng smiles upon realizing that he was caught because of his disagreeable features. When Li Dongfeng begins cackling, Yurenji becomes concerned about his bodyguard's sanity. Meanwhile, Yi Mingxu grows impatient and launches an attack on Li Dongfeng. Throughout the fight, Yurenji looks at them helplessly. Just when Yi Mingxu has had enough of Li Dongfeng, she tries to summon magic to finish off her enemy. All of a sudden, a boy comes yelling from the sky. He wields an attack on Li Dongfeng, which leads to a small explosion. With a concerned voice, Yurenji telepathically asks Li Dongfeng if he's okay. Li Dongfeng replies to him by telling him that he has to go for now, but he'll be guarding him secretly. Once the smoke dies down, the boy, Cyan, and Yi Mingxu quarrel among themselves. Mingzhu angrily tells Cyan that because of him, her prey managed to escape. Upset by the whole situation, she drags Renji away from Cyan. Through a troubled expression, Cyan asks the ladies if they have toilet paper. Renji hands him a silk ribbon, which touches Cyan's heart greatly. Later on, Mingzhu drags Renji away. She shows him a portrait of himself and asks Renji if he knows about the Darklord's son. Renji trembles with fear as Mingzhu unknowingly talks about him in front of him. While mentally debating whether he should run or not, Mingzhu lets out a frustrating sigh and says that the Justice Clan is unable to catch the young Dark Lord because nobody knows his name. As Renji breathes in relief, Mingzhu notices the panic on his face. Believing that Renji is a helpless little girl, Mingzhu decides to look after him. She assures him that when she finds Baishan's son, she won't go easy on him. Renji shudders with fear upon realizing his fate. Mingzhu drops Renji at the entrance ceremony and tell him that she'll see him later. While observing the people of the Justice Clan, Renji finds himself in awe. At the podium, Mingzhu welcomes the Headmaster Fate to deliver a speech. After a painfully slow speech, Headmaster Fate asks the students to recite the Academy's motto. The crowd suddenly goes ballistic while chanting their motto, annihilating the cult. Renji decides that he has enough of it and tries to make a run for it when suddenly the Fate Ball falls in his hand. The entire student body, along with Mingzhu, congratulates him for getting the ball. When Mingzhu asks him to make a formal introduction in front of the Academy, Renji realizes that he's done for this time. On the podium, Mingzhu announces that Renji will be rewarded Headmaster Fate's 10 years of cultivation. When she asks him to introduce himself, Renji begins to stammer in panic. After a moment of silence, she finally screams out his name. Headmaster Fate then informs him that in order to receive his cultivation, he needs to test his aptitude. Not wanting to get discovered as a cult practitioner, Renji tells Fate that he wants to work hard on his own. The students look at Renji with respect when he turns down an offer of a lifetime. However, Headmaster Fate refuses to give in and forcefully gives Renji his cultivation. After receiving Shoulin cultivation, Renji tells Mingzhu that she feels relaxed. Upon looking down, Renji realizes that she felt relaxed because his breast implants have come out. With the cat out of the bag, Renji becomes a subject of the students' scrutiny. Mingzhu immediately ordered the crowd to stop harassing Renji. In order to prove that Renji is a girl, Mingzhu gives him a kiss. She then tells the crowd that if Renji was a boy, she would have never kissed him. After saving Renji's face, Mingzhu sternly asks him if there's anything else he's hiding. Renji immediately shakes his head. She then asks him to follow her to the placement test. Mingzhu leads Renji to the training ground. She informs him that the test is mainly to examine a student's foundation. Once the grades are concluded, the student is then placed in either the top class, the advanced class, or the common class. She warns Renji that if he fails, he'll be expelled immediately. Chief Guard Kang tells the students to make an introduction one by one. After Mingzhu gives an introduction, Renji learns that she's a freshman who practically grew up in the academy because of her status as the leader's daughter. When he's asked to make an introduction, Gong scoffs at him upon learning that he has no background. During the first round, Kang asks Renji to run extra laps. To his surprise, Renji ends up finishing 100 laps before others. Upset by Renji's victory, Kang determines that he'll definitely fail him in the technical round. Yet again, Renji performs exceptionally well, which infuriates Kang. This time, however, he decides to fail Renji without any cause. Suddenly, Kang is attacked by sunflower seeds. Bai Raming announces that under no circumstances she will allow unfair rulings. Enraged by Bai Raming's rude imposition, Kang asks her to identify herself. The girl scoffs and then proudly tells Chang that she's the successor of the Sunflower Sect. Bai Raming goes on to say that justice will prevail under her watch. When she challenges Kang to a duel, the irritated brute calls her daring and asks her to reveal her test score for the first 2 rounds. Feeling accomplished, Bai Raming announces that she failed both of the tests. Upon hearing this, Kang tauntingly chuckles and says that for someone that belongs to an unknown sect, she sure has the guts to show off. Bai Raming counters Kang's insult by informing him that when the Sunflower Sect enjoyed a high status in the martial world, he was still in his mother's womb. Bai Raming's overconfidence makes Gong believe that the girl is truly hiding something up her sleeve. He decides to break Bai Raming's confidence by challenging her in the power round. Bai Raming welcomes Kang's challenge but tells him that if she wins the round, he must acknowledge Renji. Almost instantly, Kang knocks out Bai Raming. After beating her, Kang makes a mockery of her father and her sect, causing Bai Raming great pain. Renji decides that he has enough of Kang's antics and decides to challenge him. Kang accepts Renji's offer to duel, thinking that he would finally be able to get rid of him. When the fight commences, Renji tries to dodge Kang's attacks, which gets him labeled as a coward. Renji begins to worry about getting his identity exposed as he only knows Kung Fu taught by the cult. He recalls his father's words of him telling him not to use Kung Fu in the martial world. Bashan informs him that he is too mighty for any challenge since he was blessed by the elders of the cult. Renji asks his father about what she should do if he gets bullied. Bashan tells him to slap the living daylights out of his bullies. Upon instinct, Renji slaps Kang, which sends him flying. As he's recovering from the slap, Kang realizes that Renji used the World Oblivion slap, a tactic used by the Lust Queen of the cult. Just when Chang's about to label Renji as a cult disciple, the effects of the World Oblivion slap sets into motion. Kang ends up falling unconscious. The dean walks in and sternly says that they've received information on a cult disciple. He asks Renji that if he wants to die an honorable death, he should admit his crime now. Mingzhu tried to defend Renji by telling the dean that Renji was able to defeat the chief examiner only because he received Headmaster Fate's Kai. The dean calls in Suyin, who appears on a stretcher. The moment he sees Renji, he latches himself onto her. Suyin tells him that he's glad to see her fine as the silk belt he gave him contained poison made by the cult. The dean reveals that the position is called Grume Cream and is hard to detect because it's colorless and odorless. Renji faces palms mentally as he realizes that Dean Yu is labeling a gourmet sauce as poison. All of a sudden, Li Dongfeng appears from the bushes. Dean Yu instantly recognizes his old rival, causing him to attack Li Dongfeng without any hesitation. Once Li Dongfeng manages to distract Dean Yu, the helpers of the academy go on to announce the results of the placement test. Mingzhu pass with flying colors and get admitted to the top class. When Renji congratulates Mingzhu, the girl assures him that he will also be placed in the top class. However, to their and everyone's dismay, Renji is placed in the problem class, the worst class in the Justice League Academy. Located in the shabby corner of the academy, Renji is sent to the ominous problems class. He finds Suyin, who happily greets him by calling him a benefactor. When Renji asks Suyin if he finds his classmates and the class a bit weird, Suyin cluelessly tells him that he doesn't know what he's talking about. All of a sudden, Bai Reming's voice rings through the class agreeing with Renji. She places herself in front and says that ever since they were placed in the class, no teacher has come to organize or teach them. Surprised by Bai Reming's intellect, Renji looks at the girl with respect. Suddenly, she says that everyone should make her the head teacher, causing Renji to spit out whatever image he had of Bai Reming. Before Bai Reming can continue on with her tomfoolery, Dean Yu enters the class informing the students about the point system. He reveals that the moral points will assess how disciplined they are as students. He then goes on to expel Renji for injuring the teacher. As Renji begins to worry about getting his identity discovered, Suyin and Bai Reming come forth in his defense. They tell Dean Yu that if he's going to expel Renji, then he should expel them too. Upon hearing this, Yu asks the runners to fetch Bai Reming and Suyin's things. Suddenly, Mingzhu comes through the door and says that Renji is innocent. Fired up, Mingzhu reveals to Dean Yu that Renji did not willingly harm the chef examiner but was forced to do so. When Mingzhu's speech doesn't appease Dean Yu, he angrily asks her if she also wants her points deducted. Refusing to surrender, Mingzhu throws her position as the member of the discipline department and says that she's ready to be moved to the problem class. Dean Yu irritatedly asks Mingzhu to reconsider her decision. The noble girl raises her spear and says that if she yields today, she won't be able to become the next Martial League's leader. Just as Dean Yu turns to leave, Headmaster Fate walks in. He informs him that as of now, he will teach the problem class because Chan is unable to do so. Before going, Headmaster Fate gives Renji extra points which save him from getting expelled. Later on, when he's alone with Mingzhu in their dorm, the girl angrily reveals that she knows he's Bashan's son. The thing he feared the most has finally happened. Through her trembling breaths, Renji asks her how she was able to find out. The question only enrages Mingzhu further. However, she reveals that she found the truth after rummaging through his luggage. While pleading with Mingzhu, Renji accidentally has a power outburst. Forced to listen to him, Mingzhu asks Renji to narrate his story. After telling Mingzhu everything, Renji asks her to believe him. Mingzhu says that her father has always taught her to believe what she sees. However, she ends up in a mental debacle as she finds herself impressed by Renji's character, but his affiliation with the cult makes everything trickier. At the end, Mingzhu decides to keep Renji's secret in order to form a just decision. While sharing beds together, Renji learns that Mingzhu sleep talks and attacks in her sleep. The next day, he roams around like a living corpse because of lack of sleep. Suyin, Mingzhu, and Renji are then acquainted with their other classmates. Soon, Dean Yu enters the scene in a horrible mood. He chuckles darkly as he tells the students that he'll conduct a placement test. Since Yurenji has 10 years of cultivation, Dean Yu asks him to duel him. Yurenji immediately becomes sick with the fear of getting exposed. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing to the channel and stay tuned for more quality uploads.